just go back in here and mute original audio. So I think we need to just start it and see how we're doing, okay? Let's just do it. Okay. Welcome, everyone. and thank you for your patience. In Guatemala, we have two wonderful, exciting speakers who are going to share with us from their perspective, from their on the ground, so to speak, immediate perspective of what's happening in our beloved Guatemala. First will be Connie Newton, and then Rosa will give a brief introduction of Sister Gloria. And then we're going to hear from a Loretto friend whose name is Caitlin Scott, who will talk about Friendship Bridge. And if Maureen can get back on by then, she'll be introducing Caitlin. But I see Caitlin's with us. Welcome, Caitlin. Okay, so Connie, we're ready for you to start, please.
Oh, good morning, everybody. I don't know whether, here we are, happy guinea pigs, you know? So this place of beloved Guatemala, I first met when I came here in 1963. And I live in a small rural town that's exceptionally beautiful and usually full of tourists. And there aren't any right now. So let me just show you one of the reasons why tourists come. It's because all the beautiful textiles. Can you see those? Good. Okay, so this place is so beautiful that I fell in love with it in 1963, but I learned over time, both then and now, that institutional racism is just part of the history of Guatemala. It's part of the now of Guatemala. And it's certainly part of the COVID part of the now everywhere. And my perspective is going to be, I'm trusting that Sister Gloria, because she lives in such a beautiful community of the Holy Family Sisters, will talk about more of the collective effects of COVID and how it, and the other things that they're able to relate to as a community and how it affects them. I'll just tell you what things look like in my day-to-day life here and how it's been affected by the fact that I particularly live in one of the most beautiful jails in the world. And it's an extraordinary thing that the needs of people are presented now in so many different forms. The basic needs of people are not being met, right? So people don't have jobs, Caitlin, I'm sure, will be able to address more of the collective pieces of that when she talks about what happens in rural areas with microcredit loans for women. But right now, what I know is that, for instance, the gal who works for me in the morning is a mom with 4 kids who provides all the income for her 4 kids, a semi-disabled husband, a grandma, and a mother-in-law. And when the roof blows off her house, she's lucky that she's one of 12 brothers and sisters because they all helped her put the roof back on the house. Now, these are just elemental human needs. People's need for food, shelter, and clothing is just as fragile as it can possibly be. And there's a Latina poet by the name of Sonia Sanchez who sort of sums up what it looks like every day to the worker bees in this community, some who have work and some who don't. And the poem says, "Come celebrate with me because every day something tries to kill me and it has failed." there's a lot that makes our lives fragile right now. And so the beautiful part of it is that indeed in this community, and I know this for a fact, there are little networks of people who not only are feeding one another and cooking for one another, there's another whole little network of people who are feeding the dogs, including the stray dogs on the street. And it's another place to celebrate. The working together here in little bits and pieces is just what we are able to do with one another. Sally, I'm going to go back to you because I'm not sure that I'd like Caitlin somehow to be able to give a broader picture of some of the other realities, but maybe that's what you, how you've got it programmed already.
Let's see. Caitlin, you can unmute and jump in here if you got relevant stuff to share with us based on what kind of talking about.
Sure. Good morning,
First
everybody.
of all, thank you. Thank you for being with us, Caitlin. And maybe we need a little introduction from you because Maureen hadn't been able to get back on.
Oh, she's here. Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah, it came back on. So
All right.
here I am. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Caitlin's mom has been a friend of mine since 1980. So I've known Caitlin since she was a wish, her parents' wish. She works at Friendship Bridge. She's the Chief Strategy Officer and works towards empowering impoverished women in Guatemala through microfinance and employment. And that's the info I have, and she can fill you in on what that means. Good morning.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, everyone, for the invitation to talk today. I also know Connie very well from my journeys to Guatemala and her work involved with Friendship Bridge over the years. So it's nice to kind of connect the dots in my personal life and professional life with this wonderful community. Yeah, I have a lot of stats. Connie knows me well. I like data, so I'll share what the context is in Guatemala in numbers, and then Connie can probably bring to life a lot more of the feels related to what has been happening in Guatemala. And so Guatemala has one of the most fragile health care systems in Latin America. It apparently has enough medical support services to support its population as it was in 1970. And it's experienced quite a bit of growth since then in population. So the, and there's a lot of poverty in Guatemala, as I'm sure most of you know. The president of Guatemala just happens to be a physician, which is in a country where there's a lot of graft and corruption in the government. It has one of the highest indices of corruption in the world. We are very fortunate at this period of time to have somebody who knows what they're doing, at least in the medical sense. Recognizing that that COVID would be something that would collapse the medical system very quickly, he put in a state of calamity in, I think it was March 11th, if I'm not mistaken, in which he basically got executive authority for emergency issues. But what he decided to put in place, or his government, was a very strict lockdown of the country, which made it so only very, very essential businesses were allowed to operate. And very, very essential meaning grocery stores, banks, food production, and that's essentially it. Travel between states or travel at all outside of your house was prohibited, except for with passes. There was a curfew lockdown that was something like from 5 a.m. in the morning to 5 p.m. or even before that. There have been over time weekends from Friday evening to Monday morning, where no one was allowed to leave their home. People were not allowed to travel between departments, which are states in Guatemala. Public transportation has been closed down for the most part. Well, completely locked down. There have been a little bit of movement since then, but knowing that public transportation is a major vector in Guatemala, that has been shut down. In Guatemala, there have been, as of I think yesterday, just under 72,000 cases, confirmed cases, with just about 9,500 or 95,000 active cases and just under 3,000 deceased. 23 deaths occurred yesterday. For a country that's the same size as Tennessee, that's quite a bit. But what's really hidden underneath a lot of those numbers is there are only 2 testing locations in the country, both in urban contexts. So testing is quite scarce compared to what is probably occurring in areas outside of the cities. But the data says that, probably related to where the testing is occurring, is that most of the cases are in urban contexts. And that does make sense in terms of, you know, how people transmit the disease. So Guatemala City has the most number of cases, with Quetzaltenango and its neighbor Totonicapan were very highly hit. In our experience, we've seen that the urban areas definitely are more hit by the disease than our rural areas. There's a state in Guatemala called LACC, and it has almost no cases. It's experienced very little. So it's really interesting around the country how much people are affected by the disease based upon whether they're urban or rural, or how much it's transmitted. So Friendship Bridge is an organization that provides microcredit, so small loans to small entrepreneurs. And our model is to provide it to groups so that people who have scarce resources, no collateral, are able to access credit. We work only with women in Guatemala, and we predominantly work in rural areas. About just under half of our clients self-identify as Indigenous, and about half of them live beneath the national poverty line, and most of them just barely above that. As Maureen said, our mission is to empower women to create a better future through credit, education, and health services, to create a better lives for themselves and their families. We do that through not only microcredit in groups. We take advantage of groups of women and the power of women in groups, like this group, to share knowledge and learn from one another. It's actually something that Connie implemented into Friendship Bridge, acknowledging that power. And so we provide non-formal education through participatory methods in our monthly repayment meetings that we do in person in people's homes. We also have health services provided by a partner named Wakukawak, or My Health Alliance, which provides culturally appropriate preventive health services like pap smears, diabetes testing, and hypertension testing, as well as family planning options. And those are also provided in homes of our clients, so that we are navigating the treacherous waters of taboo in the rural areas. We have our staff, as I was saying, everything is in person. Our staff who attends our over 30,000 clients a year, women, go into the field in hard to reach places in their motorcycles or on public transportation, especially women, loan officers or facilitators, as we call them, to get to meet with their clients on a monthly basis. We as I was describing, public transportation has been shut down. And as we know, COVID is something that transmits in person, obviously. So our operations have been severely affected because all of our methodology is in person and requires travel and dependence on public transportation. So when the state of calamity was declared and no public transportation was was allowed, we decided to try and collect from our clients what we could in the month of March and encourage them to be up to date with their payment in the month of March. And we, knowing that their businesses would be affected by the state of calamity, they would not be able to use public transportation. The economic activity would be severely depressed in many areas, especially those like the area that Connie's living in that depends on tourism. We decided to freeze payments for the months of April and May completely. So we just basically did a forbearance. We just moved all of the payments back 2 months for our clients to be able to get on their feet for this period of time. We also decided to have everybody work from home in our population of staff. So we had to turn to telephone service, remote service within a matter of a week and a half, and figure out how to work with our clients at a distance. We had to also protect our staff and not become a vector of transmission of the disease to the communities we serve. So I would say that I would like to say how our clients seem to have been affected during that period of time. Many public marketplaces where our clients both sell and buy their groceries were closed or open infrequently. Getting food into communities became a challenge, particularly because certain communities decided to limit who could come and go from the communities, not just transportation that was limited by the federal government. They also decided to keep people out of the communities, and that sometimes meant that groceries didn't arrive. We had one staff member in a town called Concepcion who lived there, and she couldn't leave her town. And her co-workers decided to bring her food because she couldn't get access to food. They brought her a few bags of rice and beans. We took a survey of our staff who was calling all of our clients on a regular basis to provide them with information about, here's the protocols that the government has put in place. This is how you take care of yourself to protect yourself from the virus. Here's some ideas of how to keep your business afloat at this period of time. We asked our staff what percentage of our clients were having a hard time feeding themselves, and we got a number that was very concerning, about 46%. So as an organization that was in April, as an organization that's been really focused on sustainable programs and not just giving, we like to have some sort of sustainability with the programming so that we're there for our clients in the future. We realized that the support that our clients needed at this time was food, just basic survival food. So we created a program to deliver groceries in a period of a couple weeks. We raised just over $50,000, as well as close to $100,000 of products, gift in kind, like hygiene products. And we were able to deliver kits, so bags of groceries to just about 7,500 families, which is equivalent to about 37,000 people that it would feed for a month. So these grocery bags had like rice, beans, oil, and and we also had milk, and we had a basket of goods that our health partner said would feed a family with good nutrition for a full month. that was a whole new path for us. It was very complicated, and we were glad that we were able to do that. Of course, it's not the 46% of our 30,000 clients that we were able to reach, but we identified those clients with the very highest need. And as Connie was saying, the collective nature in Guatemala is very different from the US, where individualism is so important. There is a lot of support among the communities of our clients and our staff, where they are supporting one another from their families and their neighbors. Some other information just in the context, talking to our clients and staff about what they've had to do to navigate this time. You know, how are their children going to school? They are not going to school at this time. They are learning remotely. So in a country where many people do not have access to the internet, it's very interesting to figure out how to do that. Fortunately, in the last decade, many people have gained access to phones, to cell phones, which when I first started going to Guatemala, nobody had phones. But in the last decade, yes, I've been going to Guatemala for more than a decade. Many people have phones, some have smartphones. And so what people are, how children are learning is they are getting text messages from their teachers, some just simple text messages and some through WhatsApp to figure out or to learn what they need to learn, which has been a challenge for a lot of families to figure out how to do, especially those who are not literate themselves, and trying to manage the situation and also juggle their jobs and their financial responsibilities. I personally can attest to that with 2 kids at home. That's challenging. But I at least have internet and other things to entertain my kids most of the time. I'm sure people have things to entertain their children as well in Guatemala. In terms of access to healthcare, we had an interesting comment from our health partner, My Health Alliance, who was saying that many people in Guatemala are not, rural people in particular, or indigenous background, were not comfortable getting tested for COVID or even seeking services, because the government's practice was to isolate the people who tested positive, whether they had severe symptoms or not. So they were taken to a hospital in the city and isolated from their families in a COVID ward. This was conjuring up a lot of memories, negative memories related to the Civil War in Guatemala and people being disappeared. So a lot of rural people were not pursuing the COVID testing. So it's an interesting factor in all the statistics I presented at the beginning, and how the historical cultural context plays into it. For Friendship Bridge, we returned to collecting from our clients in June, and you may imagine that an organization that has a loan portfolio, and we do charge an interest on our loans. We depend on that interest to be able to pay our operational expenses, but also to disperse again to our clients. We experienced quite a financial loss in the past several months. And when we were doing our financial projections for the rest of the year, we have basically $1 million loss projected, but we still will survive. The positive thing there is that we are having a much higher repayment rate than we expected or projected to have from our clients. And it's actually quite a bit better than our competition. And just to be informative here, our collection practices, we have a lot of standards in place that they're always responsible and respectful. We are being very careful to only collect when clients can actually repay. We're restructuring quite a few loans so that we can lengthen out and make the payments smaller for our clients to be able to repay. So when I say our collections are good, it's actually good good repayment capacity with our clients, or good faith repayments. And it's better than our competitors, and we're attributing this to the relationship that we've managed with our clients and being very close to them over time and offering them a number of products and services that aren't credit alone. We've offered telehealth services to our clients through our health partner. So our clients can call our health partner with any symptoms or questions they have about COVID, and that avoids the government factor. And we've restarted some of our in-person clinics for our clients with very strong protocols. We also do some follow-up for those complicated cases of diabetes or cervical cancer. For education, we are trying to create some sort of way to do distance learning with our clients. So we have a lot of focus on trying to maintain a strong relationship with our clients through technology, because we have to limit the time and contact we have with our clients at this time, and we're not sure when that will be returning. So we're trying to figure that out right now. We are also creating a program to help our clients transition their businesses from something maybe that was dependent on tourism before COVID. Now they can't support themselves with that. So what kind of advisory services can we provide our clients to transition to some sort of other economic activity? That's how we are focusing for the rest of this year. I forgot to mention one other statistic that's really interesting. Our clients are repaying very well, also because we think that remittances are helping quite a bit from the US. There was a record-breaking year this year in amount of remittances sent from the US to Guatemala, which is very interesting at this time. So those are my things to add, if anyone has any questions, or if it's better to turn to Connie.
I'll just add a couple of little things that are reflections of some of the good pieces that you gave, Caitlin. It's really good to hear the larger context. Some simple things about the markets. It's how we live from day to day here, is going to the market. You'll be interested to know that those of us who are over 60 are not allowed in the markets. So I trust a whole network of young friends to schlep for me. And the gratitude goes on for how local networks work. The health issues that Caitlin helped highlight are enormous. There are no health tests available in the rural area where I live, other than the drastic measures that Caitlin mentioned, and nobody wants to go to the hospital. There are a whole layer of other medical, herbal things that people trust more than they do hospitals and doctors. But we are here, and come celebrate with us that we still are.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you both, Caitlin and Connie. Thank you both. Caitlin, I have a question for you, and then I'm going to open it up and see who else might have some questions for either you or Connie. You mentioned the food emergency that your organization did your best to fill to the extent that you could. Is that still going on? Are you still providing food for people? And is it for both your clients and your staff?
We are not doing it. We finished it 2 weeks ago, delivering all those items to our clients, but we actually had identified families of our staff. We have a staff of, I think we're at 140 now, but that includes 10 staff members in the US. And about 65 of our staff members were experiencing challenges feeding their families. And that is largely due to, we had very few layoffs. We tried very hard to keep all of our staff employed, even though we weren't fully functioning through the whole time. But many of our staff members have become the sole income earner in their households because many people have lost their jobs outside in their households. So yes, we did decide to donate groceries, very confidentially or carefully to our staff members during this period of time.
Thank you.
The other pipeline for some of the, there are a number of local nonprofits that are also delivering food on a regular basis still. And supposedly, here's another aspect of the government corruption. There has been food delivery through the schools. There have been 2 distributions in Panajachel. Other places don't get it at all because they're too rural. But the government touts that it has continued to give out food. It hasn't come. The amount of donations and loans that the government has taken out, like supposedly to do the kind of income for people who don't have employment, that happened once a little bit, and they say it's going on. It isn't.
I imagine many of us on the call are thinking about Loretto's Hunger Fund, and if there's something that we could contribute, maybe we can talk about that afterwards. Who else wants to have questions or comments here? Please just unmute yourself and come on in. We're small enough, I think.
You're going to hear from Gloria first?
Okay, shall we hear from Gloria first? Sure. Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to go grab a glass of water. I just mentioned that to Sister Gloria.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right, oh, we just lost Gloria's video. Maybe she's getting water also. Caitlin, how long has your organization been in existence?
We've been in Guatemala since 1998.
1998, wow.
That's when I started with it.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's great.
My throat's getting a little dry. Okay.
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 Okay, Rosa, you going to introduce Sister Gloria?
Oops, we're still watering.
¿En dónde? ¿Cuántos años? Bueno, ahorita de estar como tiempo más permanente, llevo 11 aquí en la ciudad. 11 años. Muy bien.
So let me present Sister Gloria, sister of the Holy Family Congregation. Sister Gloria has been living in the Guatemala City for the past 11 years. She said she will be providing other details in terms of her stay in her life there in Guatemala. So with that.
Muy bien. Buenos días a todos. Muy bien. Bueno, buenos días para todas.
Good morning to all. Thank you so much for the invitation to have this time of togetherness and to share what's happening here. First of all, I want to share that I've been as part of the Congregation of Holy Family for a long time with the different missions, and these past 11 years I've been here in the city of Guatemala. I think that much of what Connie has shared and Caitlin it may seem I'm going to be repeating some of it, but trying to look at a bigger picture of what's happening.
Como bien sabemos, fue el anuncio, ¿verdad?
The,
Que hubo una cadena nacional en donde se nos decía que a partir del 13, ¿verdad? Todo se quedaba cerrado. Nosotros todavía tuvimos el 13 de marzo.
okay, so
Entonces,
the,
la noche se nos
the
anunció, todos
12th
trabajamos el
of
2,
March,
perdón, el
in
2,
the,
el 13
in the
trabajamos,
evening,
pero ya para
we heard the announcement by the government that on the 13th, everything was going to be shut down
entonces,
and that everyone was going to need to stay in-house.
fue un caos, ¿verdad? Para todo el mundo.
So for all of us, it was a chaotic situation about the COVID pandemic. There was a lot of fear. And when you look out into the streets of the city, everything was empty. You might see one or two persons going to work or going for food. And also, as has been mentioned, the public transportation has been shut down.
Ya lo decían ellas, ¿verdad? De que
Also, as has been mentioned, that the communications from the president were about every 2 weeks, and everyone was on pins and needles about what he was going to say next about the confinement. But we saw that every day it was getting more and more complicated. We heard of the first death and excessive deaths after that. And as was mentioned, all of the markets and businesses were closed down. And the big supermarkets were not losing during this time. They remained open. The pharmacies also were open 24 hours a day. If we go to the religious aspect, the churches were closed. Also, Catholic and non-Catholic churches were closed. This took us into praying more frequently as families, as we search for that unity and to support each other through prayer during this very difficult reality. We also saw as a positive thing the families in the home, maybe one or two working, but also through this, there came fear about that one person who had to leave the house and then return to not contaminate or infect anyone in the family. We also started to learn through the students about how their lives were being transformed and what they were living. Then the cities and towns started just shutting down until now. And now we know that the school year we have to finish in home. And we as a school, we started preparing, but this was very hard news, everyone in home. And we started sending out homework. And we also had to do training for our staff on the technological level and technological need of what we had to do. This was all on an irregular time zone, and we also had to see what was happening with the families. We had in the city a little bit more access than the rural areas. In terms of the families in our school, they depend more on phones rather than computers, and not so much Wi-Fi, but cell service. So this was also something that they had to supplement, and was something that they had to stretch their home budgets about. I, I want to share that it has impacted us on the emotional part, and also on the financial aspect, where the mom or dad or older brother, sister were left without jobs. In terms of health, we've heard that the, the, the president of our country is a doctor, and we thought, oh, that's great. You know, he knows and he'll take measures, but it was very for a short time. And it was as if he said, well, you know, my commitment, my responsibility ends here. So all of this has pushed us to be critical of the government and to be concerned. We know that in Guatemala we have good medical personnel, good doctors, but some of them have been infected and have died because of COVID.
Centros, diríamos, como para hospitales, ¿verdad? Ir construyendo otros hospitales.
So part of what we had to do as well was ensure that we supplement and build new facilities, a new hospital where we can be attended regarding COVID. There's new resources that need to be obtained, new beds, new sheets, and we know that in Guatemala the healthcare is supposed to be free, but yet the concern is raised with the families who have family members with COVID. The families have had to buy medication to treat COVID. A colleague of ours very close to a congregation was infected by COVID, and he was telling us that just one medicine was 700, 800 quetzales, and he had to take 3 or 4, but just one was a very high cost. So it prompts us to ask, like, why are people dying if they can't afford the medicine? We see why. So it's something of great concern to all of us. Perhaps we as sisters have a little bit more resources, but for the families to have to pay these high costs for medicines, that they just can't do it. Moreover, our country was not prepared for this pandemic, and never has been. And also to have to face other crises, other catastrophes that we've had to face, such as natural disasters, but that just lasts a few days. But for this is something that lasts longer. So also what we've heard is this issue of corruption. It has increased 100% at all levels of the government, at the local, military, all of it has been touched by corruption. And it has impacted the social services, education, health, transport. In terms of education, in the public sector,
También acompañada de una bolsa de víveres que supuestamente es para no sé si no sé cuánto tiempo ahorita,
in
pero
terms of education, there's only 2 days where this education is being worked, and it's supposed to be supplemented by supplies, and that's not happening. So in terms of the movement, our borders have been closed completely. Our small, medium, and large businesses have been closed, and they began firing their employees. Not only firing, but also reducing salaries. So to say that it impacted the family economy, the households. At this point, what the government did was create a project to temporarily suspend businesses. So if a business said, well, I'm closing because I'm bankrupt, the list of employees who would solicit support from the government would be only 75.
Bueno, este proyecto de
So
suspensión
this project of employment suspension was a project by the government so that companies that could no longer pay their employees, the government would provide 75 quetzales a month, a day, and 2,500 a month. It started off okay, but now we're waiting for payment from 2 months. And so since for us that we have 4 schools, we're also affected by this because the parents aren't able to pay for the education of their kids because they've lost their jobs or they've had a small business that they've lost. So we also have not been able to cover the payroll for our employees. And so we entered into this program, this government program, and it was approved after 2 days. And so we expected the help would come for our employees, and we've only received for 1 month. And now we don't know if it's going to come, if the second round of salary payment is going to come. So that's another worry that we have, not only in the education sector, but also in other businesses that are impacted as well. Also, the government initiated a family bond, a support for the families to give 1,000 quetzales but so far they've only paid 1 month. So again, we're waiting to see the implementation, the full implementation of this family bond. So the government uses this saying, well, we've provided the first month of the family bond, and they use it as propaganda to say that they're doing well. Also, I want to mention on the part of the economic part that Connie has mentioned, that all of this has impacted the schools, the universities, the businesses, and in turn has affected the parents. And then also impacts us because they've not been able to pay for the kids' education. As a result, some of them have removed their kids from the schools. They're left with just the basics to provide for food. So what happens with us, with those that have the private schools, we're obligated to pay for the salaries of the teachers. And so there has been firing, dismissal of teachers, or suspension of the teachers teaching in schools. We've also been reducing a small percentage in different sectors that we have, because we see that from March to August, 50% of the parents have not been able to pay the tuition. So all of this has us all very concerned, wondering what we're going to do. So overall, we're talking about 14 salaries a year. So we see that it has not been very easy for us, and it's a great worry for us as a congregation. I say it generally because I think in Africa, the sisters are in a similar situation. They have not been able to continue the classes because they can't depend on the resources coming in. And so here in Latin America, we've been able to continue because perhaps we just have a few more resources to continue. So all of this, as a result, the violence has increased, violation of kids, of boys, of girls. We hear even in their own homes. And there's been an increase of teen pregnancy because people are home, and that has been a risk. And we also hear of abused women in their homes or the other way around.
Como la gente ya está como cansada, ya no cree.
People are tired. People don't believe in the government. They've turned to violence, to burn some of the city hall in some areas, turning on their own communities to combat that pandemic. Some localities have had to organize. I think we're all responsible, because we see in the social media, it says that we all have to take care of each other, putting our masks, using sanitizer. And now it seems like there's a bit more freedom, a little more movement. And you see that people now are not wearing the masks. And that doesn't, of course, diminish the contamination of this disease. So in August, yes, it seems that it's been in a more relaxed mode. And so that's what we're trying to manage now. In the meantime, we see that some families are opening up and going out, but without the protective measures. And as we've heard, the medical staff, many of them have not received their payment. We've heard through the family of one of our sisters that one of the nurses related to her has not been paid. So they turn to loans or just supporting each other as a family. And this is not just one case, there are many cases like this. And again, someone has mentioned this, Guatemala has received a lot of support, but it does not reach all places, only certain sectors. And also the large loans that the government has taken during this time. Where is that money? As always, we're seeing that it stays in the hands of a few.
Entonces, esto nosotras pues veíamos ya viendo un poquito pues con las familias, dice.
And so for us, we're seeing that with the families, we're trying to share and to pray with them, not only for us, but for the whole world, because this is a global problem and no one escapes this. And we have certain cases, very intensive, of very delicate health, who have patients who have been contaminated, who have been very, very ill, who have come out of this. Hermana Gloria, I just...
Ya, entonces yo ya termino con esto, ya estaba en lo último.
So I was just about to finish my last point. We pray that this pandemic will end soon, or that at least we learn better how to live with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sister Gloria. So good of you to join us this morning on such short notice, I might add.
Un gusto.
We really appreciate it. And now that we know how to do this translation, we can do this more often. I think many of us in the community here in Loretto would really look forward to doing it much more frequently. So thank you so much for joining us. Now, I'm aware that we are past, we normally are pretty good about ending in exactly 1 hour, but we had a few startup problems with folks in the cockpit here. And we had such compelling information to learn. So any of you who can stay longer, please do. I'm going to open it up to questions and comments, but if you have to leave, we understand that. So who would like to ask a question or make a comment here? Bob, please.
Caitlin, I have a question for you. how many organizations like yours are in Guatemala? And two-part, and how does someone?
Rosa, are you translating? I'm not hearing Bob.
I am
Okay.
translating to Sister Gloria.
Well, then I'm not
In
hearing Bob.
Spanish.
Though.
I can hear him.
Whoa. Okay. Where am I? I'm on the English channel. Bob, you may not be on the English channel. Could you switch to English so we can hear you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So my question is for Caitlin. How many organizations like yours are in Guatemala, and how does someone in Guatemala connect to your organization?
Are you asking about lenders, like microcredit organizations?
I have a couple women that have been recently deported to Guatemala, and so I have connections with people in Guatemala. So I'm just curious for them.
Okay. There are quite a few microfinance organizations in Guatemala. There are also savings cooperatives. So depending on where they are, they might be able to be put in touch with different ones. We are in 14 departments, mostly in the south and western areas of Guatemala, more in the rural areas. We're not in the city, Guatemala City. So you can get in touch with me and maybe we can put them in contact with our loan operations, or you can I can give you some advice depending on where they are.
Okay, thank you.
Generally, Bob, there are about 10,000 nonprofits
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, for nonprofits, not just microcredit, Guatemala has a ton because of the lack of support from the government. It fills in, the nonprofit sector fills in where the government does not.
And just a follow-up question, if I can. Is this information go out and available to people in Guatemala, that there are organizations that can assist them? No?
Not really. I mean, people have to bump into it on the ground, and some have a stronger presence, as does Friendship Bridge, because of its being very relational. Others don't.
Okay. Thank you.
Everyone, Caitlin has told me that she has to leave in just a moment. So if anyone has a question or comment for her, let's get that in now, okay?
I also put my email in the chat if anybody wants to get in touch with me. I did want to add to something that Sister Gloria said about the home. Something that we've had to learn or we've had to start offering to our staff is mental health support. We have actually started to partner with a psychologist, which the culture of psychological kind of therapy in Guatemala is kind of foreign, but at this time we are, it seems to be changing a bit because of the pressures that are being put on the families. And I mean, as she said, it's all around the world, but we've had to offer that to our staff, and it's something that we're exploring also. How do we connect our clients with supportive services in that regard as well? It's definitely important at this time.
I would just add personally that stress is just plain everywhere, and my personal therapy is that the gal who works for me every day, beloved Griselda, and I do Qigong relaxation exercises every day.
Okay, other comments, questions? Expressions of gratitude to our speakers? Yes.
Thank you very much, everyone.
I want to say thank you to Sister Gloria for joining us and sharing in that. and also to Connie and Caitlin on behalf of all of us. And also to the LACC wonderful crew for really, Sally, we actually got this translation interpretation going. I know
Yeah.
we had some glitches in the beginning, but this is the first meeting, I think, of Loretto where we have the Zoom interpretation. We did it before for the Maria Pedro's funeral, but we had all these crazy links with, I wasn't the interpreter, but we had a professional interpreter. And we were going through hoops to do it. Now we can do it. And I hope, and I will translate this to Sister Gloria, but I hope that it also enables us to connect with those community members and with the sisters in other parts of the world, you know, especially for the LACC, and with the friends of those members in Guatemala and different parts of the world, to also just bring the global perspective and analysis. Maybe we'll turn next to Nicaragua or Haiti, you know, to have that. I think it's so important to provide that global context.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Rosa, for translating and, you know, really pushing us to do it, you know. So it was great. Thanks, Hermana Gloria and Connie and Caitlin.
Now, we had planned, if we had plenty of time, to have a brief update of what are the conditions on the border. Thank you, Caitlin, from Bob and Mary Jean. And I know we're way over. Do you all have something quickly that you want to tell us that we need to know?
Yeah, I can give a quick update.
Okay. To any who can stay, please do.
So, yeah, just briefly. So things in Nogales at the Commodore and KBI, things are pretty much the same. You know, no volunteers allowed. It's essential travel. So they're just handing out meals outside the building at the Commodore now to the migrants. The migrant population has grown a bit. And then relative to the border, they're starting to replace the old wall with a new wall around Sasabe, which is southwest of Tucson. And there are a number of people crossing through the desert. And what they've been doing, and a number of Samaritans have actually seen this, is that they're apprehending people, taking them to the border, and just releasing them back across the border. So a lot of that is going on now. They're not putting some of them in the prisons. And as far as prisons, the COVID cases have dropped. Less people are in quarantine now, but there still are several cases. I have several women that I communicate that have had the virus and are getting better, but still suffering from some symptoms. Courts are starting to get back to normal somewhat, but cases are still off, you know, up until October, November, and some that have appealed have no court dates at all. So they're just, you know, they're still waiting. As of the 8th of August, they started to release people back to Guatemala. Many people had orders of deportation for 3 or 4 months, and they were just in limbo waiting in Eloy and La Palma. So now they've been deported back to Guatemala. Women, I've done 2 video chats from Guatemala via WhatsApp, and they told me that they were on planes with 100 people. And when they got to Guatemala, they were in quarantine at a hotel for 5 days before they had gone back to their pueblos. So just as an update, in total, now that we've bonded out 4 women, the last was a young indigenous woman who went to a sponsor in Utah, and the day after she arrived, her 2 daughters were reunited with her. So now the family's together. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So,
Sally, just a quick thing on
Yes.
San Diego border. Since I'm in Chula Vista now, which is about 5 miles from the border, because of Trump's new policy as of Monday to limit inessential travel at the border every morning and at 5 o'clock at night. There's been a wait of 6 hours at the Otay border and at Tijuana border. So going both ways, and the people are so upset because many people come from Mexico every day to work, and they have to, the wait is 6 hours. So anyway, we've got to vote. That's all I say. You know, we've got to change the people in charge. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Connie.
I just have to say thank you so much for being community, and I need to leave.
Okay, thank you so much, Connie. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Well, this has been wonderful, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us and being a part of this. And we're going to keep doing this every month. We'll make more announcements. So watch your Loretto community announcements.
Yeah. Thanks,
Thank
Sally.
you all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye. Thank you all.
Buen día.
Oh,
Everybody.
sí. Hola,
Bye.
Gloria.
Hola, Gloria. Hola.
Adiós.
Adios.
Gracias.